Hi everyone, I'm Annalisa from C.A.C. Global Solutions. We provide a vast range of services from aircraft management, transition aircraft to quality audits and consulting services. I'm here today with Bret Peters. He works with us, and we are here for episode 3 of Storytime with Bret. This is a mini series where we talk about different experiences and situations that Bret encountered over his career. So welcome, and what do you have for us today?
Thanks, Annalisa. So today I've got a little bit of a story with a regulatory perspective on it. As a civil aviation inspector, obviously you come across lots of different situations where you have to look at different aircraft, you have to deal with different people, organizations, private people. This one situation was quite interesting. I once had to go on site to basically just visit a company. And so this is a corporate aircraft operator who's supposed to be getting a new aircraft type. Is not only just new to his fleet, but also actually new to the register. So the aircraft register's never seen a type of this sort. And he had already been in contact with the authority, trying to get all of the pieces in place, an application had been submitted for acceptance of the type onto the register by the type certificate holder, and it was in the works, but it hadn't been accepted yet. And he was pushing and pushing, kept getting calls from him that, we're going to take delivery of this aircraft. It's happening, next 3 weeks. It's happening next 2 weeks. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Meanwhile, the authority hadn't even agreed to allow that type of aircraft onto the register yet. So on this one particular day, another inspector and I are out making calls to different companies that we oversee. And I get a call from our office, the certification office, saying that they need more information about this aircraft. So I said, well, the operator is just up the road. We're going to stop in and maybe have a chat with him and get the information that you need, and then you can continue with the process. And they were great, and they thought that's fine. It's going to happen in short order. So I got on the phone and I called the operator and I told him that we're in the area and we're going to stop by in the next probably 45 minutes to an hour to get this additional information. And it was interesting because right away he was saying, well, don't you want to go for lunch yet and maybe come over after lunch or whatever? And this is 11 o'clock. I mean, it's getting close to lunchtime, but I said, well, no, we'll just come over, get this out of the way, and then we'll go grab a bite, whatever. And so he was reluctant, but nonetheless, he agreed. And so it took us about 45 minutes to get there. He meets us at the front door of the company, and he welcomes us, and he guides us into his office where he says he has all of the supporting information that's still required. So that was great. We went into his office and he gave us all of the information that our certification office had asked for, and I made sure I collected everything, got copies, and then, it's our prerogative to have a look around while we're there, right? So this other inspector and I, we start making our way through the hangar, and this hangar has, I don't know, 8 or 10 different aircraft in it. And we're just kind of meandering through the hangar, having a look around at different things. And all of a sudden, there's an aircraft of that type sitting in the back corner in the hangar. So we stopped, and the inspector and I looked at each other, and then we both turned and looked at him at the same time, and his face just went beet red. Yeah. So then we asked him, what's that aircraft? Well, that's the aircraft. So meanwhile, you have to start asking the questions. Okay, well, how is it that you're looking at registering the aircraft in 2 to 3 weeks and you don't have a flight authority for the aircraft and it's sitting right there in the hangar? So he explained that the aircraft was a brand new production aircraft, and that the company that produced the aircraft had FAA authorization to issue flight authority a permit to fly under its production certificate. So, I mean, that's feasible. So we started going down that road with them, and you know, it was an interesting situation because the FAA can issue a flight permit or a flight authorization of any sort for flight within their airspace. That's fine, and that's what they did. They authorized this through the production facility. So, however, for that flight authority to be valid in other airspace, it would have to be validated by that authority, whichever authority's airspace it's flying over. So this was kind of one of the pieces that was missing. So arguably, the aircraft had been flown from the production facility in the United States to the point where it was ready to leave the country, at which time it was passing into another state's airspace, but it didn't have a legal flight authority. And not only that, the state didn't even recognize that aircraft type yet. So there are a couple issues there. But nonetheless, you know, that obviously that there's some issues there that we had to examine a little further. And so we got talking to him, and basically he admitted that the aircraft was flown up last weekend with an FAA flight permit that hadn't been validated to fly in the state's airspace that it was in. And not only that, I mean, it hadn't been registered. It had production markings on the aircraft. Mm-hmm. It had, actually, the title had been transferred to the new owner, which the new owner hadn't applied for registration yet. He was still flying the aircraft on the FAA production markings. Mm-hmm. And in another state's airspace without, at that point, his insurance wouldn't be valid if he even had insurance. That's one avenue we really didn't go down. But long story short, the aircraft was not registered. It didn't have a valid flight authority. It didn't have a valid maintenance program. It didn't have anything because it wasn't even accepted on the register yet as a type, never mind the aircraft itself. So it was interesting because what happened is we started collecting evidence. And of course, we went through all of the aspects. I mean, we took photos, we took photocopies of the logbooks. We actually took the logbook, gave him a receipt for the logbook. We talked to him about the path that the aircraft took. The journey log for the flight log for the aircraft showed all of the stops that he made along the way. So, you know, in an instance like that, the aircraft had taken off a number of times, and a lot of regulations state things like no person shall perform a takeoff in an aircraft unless. Mm-hmm. Well, in this case, there were multiple. So each one of these is actually an infraction. So we were collecting evidence. We got actually air traffic control tapes of the aircraft being in flight and such, and you know, everything was collected and documented properly. And
so did he say why he did that? Why he couldn't wait for a proper registration and so on and so on?
Because the process was taking too long.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, you know, unfortunately, and the interesting thing is, excuse me, and the interesting thing is, once the authority got involved, now the process was extended considerably. Because, I mean, we were talking about, our certification office was talking about, as soon as they got this information, they could make the determination whether the aircraft would be accepted onto the register or not. Had he produced the information that was required, which he did, and it was accepted, which it most likely would have been, you know, a week or two later, he probably would have had his documents that he had requested and said that he needed in 2 or 3 weeks. But instead, you know, he went this route, and all of a sudden, you've got the certification office and the airworthiness office and the flight ops office, everybody, enforcement as well, going, okay, time out. Let's wait a minute and look at this.
Yeah, well, to me also it doesn't make any sense because, okay, the process is taking too long. I can understand why that is annoying, let's say like this, but why would you bring the aircraft into your country anyways, because you can't fly anyways. So instead, if you left it there at the manufacturer facility, you know, little maintenance stuff that may come up would have been addressed. I mean, there are a number of things, right, that are wrong with this, because even, you know, you mentioned it doesn't have a maintenance program. Were they approved to perform maintenance on that aircraft? You know, so this is what I don't understand. I mean,
well,
you
know, it's interesting. You're absolutely right, because there was no type of that kind in the country. No AMO, no repair station, no maintenance organization had ever been issued an approval to release any work on that aircraft. So had it remained in the United States, and he could have most likely quite easily applied to the local FSDO and got a flight permit to fly the aircraft around the US because it was an accepted type in the US, then, you know, it could have also been repaired if need be. But now he brought it into another country that didn't have authorization to even, no organization had authorization to perform maintenance on that aircraft. It becomes an anchor. It's a weight.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, because you know, I had a similar experience when I worked for a manufacturer, and you know, once you start flying, the counter starts, right? So you have a number of things that may become expired, and you don't have anybody that can address them. So you are already out of the type certificate holder approved data. So it's really a weird situation, eh?
It is, and it's actually kind of a catch-22 or a chicken before the egg situation as well, because part of it, accepting a type into a country, is whether it's supportable or not. I mean, some authorities take the attitude that sure, you can bring an aircraft in, but if it encounters a defect, or like you say, maintenance comes due on it, you can't do anything with it. I mean, short of applying for a flight permit to fly it out of the country to somewhere where you can have work done to it, you know, it's just ridiculous.
So in this scenario, we have a number of things that went wrong. So, well, first of all, this flight permit that wasn't approved for
validated
for the country where it was supposed to go. The aircraft wasn't registered. Not only that, but the type of aircraft wasn't even approved yet at that time. And there was no one approved at that time, because the type wasn't approved, that could perform maintenance on that aircraft. The operator couldn't anyways fly that aircraft, so it's quite unclear why they moved the aircraft anyways. But the most important thing is that they lied to the authority, which is a really very bad situation to be in, because now the question is, okay, how many other things are hiding?
Yeah. So I mean, it started with when title transferred for the aircraft, the manufacturer of the aircraft deregisters the aircraft. It's no longer theirs. It's no longer a production aircraft. So right there, the flight authority that was issued to the aircraft became invalid because it was no longer on the register even. So now you've got an aircraft that isn't on any register, and then all of these other things happen, right? But you're absolutely right. The confidence that is lost in that organization by the authority is immeasurable. Because, like I say, what could have been a 2 or 3 week exercise to finish the process to obtain type certification in the state became a 6-month process, because now everything is being scrutinized, and every stone is being unturned. I mean, there was nothing that wasn't going without being looked at a second time from that point on. And actually everything that had been submitted and taken for being accurate and true started getting revisited and reevaluated. And of course, everything happened in the fullest of time. So this operator, now he had an aircraft that sat for 6 months, like you say, having maintenance come due on it that he couldn't perform, waiting to use his aircraft, and he's got all of this money tied up in a brand new aircraft that he can't even use, simply because of his, pardon me, but his stupidity.
Yeah, I had a similar situation with the client where I had a maintainer not sharing full information on something. This organization made a repair on an aircraft that I managed some time ago, and they really didn't say anything to the Airworthiness organization, and so it wasn't my work package, and I found this defect, this repair, in the maintainer's work package. And when I asked for clarification, it was basically impossible to get one. It was very weird because they wrote that the repair was done, but the material was ordered. So I said, okay, which one is what is happening? Because, okay, do we have a problem? We don't have a problem. And it's a very uncomfortable position because, well, first of all, you don't know if you have an airworthy problem, and problem that affects airworthiness there or not. You don't know if to trust this maintainer or not, because the communication wasn't clear and transparent. Obviously, this organization was hiding something. And the other thing is that, you know, if you have an aircraft that goes back to a main base, and you have the possibility to go to your main base and go to the to the hangar and see the aircraft and see yourself what's going on, is one thing. But when you have other situations, like, for example, you have an aircraft that is flying all around the world, or even a helicopter based on a boat that is going everywhere. Well, I don't have that possibility, right, to go there and check myself what's going on. So trust is really important.
Oh, it's paramount. And so being vague about a maintenance entry is one thing, but and errors of omission are another. But then there's basically intentionally omitting information that is required to be entered, and that's an infraction against the Act, Aeronautics Act, in pretty much any state. So, you know, you've got that. But as you said, you know, and same with this other situation where the aircraft has been brought in and it wasn't registered, it was flown in, you know, so many things wrong. I mean, yes, I didn't even touch on the fact that, okay, we're talking at enforcement action on a lot of this. I mean, there were a lot of infractions against the Aeronautics Act. I mean, on so many cases, so many points. And of course, they go down that road too, right? But beyond that, like you say, it equates to lying. I mean, lying by omission, however you want to look at it. And what that does for the confidence between what it does for the relationship between the organization and the authority, it degrades it to such a point that now everything that they do is brought into question. And that's not a comfortable position to be in for the organization or for the regulator.
Yeah.
I mean, as a regulator, you want to take for granted that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, you know, unless you see evidence otherwise, which obviously this was the case. But then, like you say, now can you trust them with anything?
Yeah, and also for the organization is now a lot of extra work, because not only they had to wait until all of this was cleared up, but also in the future, you have to expect that the authority is going to look at you closely for a number of months.
Yeah, at least.
At least.
Mean, for anything that they ask for beyond that, I mean, if they want a variation to a maintenance program or anything, they're going to jump through every hoop there is, because you can't trust what they're telling you, right?
Yeah.
So, whereas, you know, you may have other clients, excuse me, whereas, you know, you may have other clients that are straight up with you, and they find their own non-compliances and they bring them forward and they say, hey, look what we found. Okay, well, now you know you can trust those ones and you can cut them some latitude, but not with operators like this, right?
Yeah, that is a very interesting story. Thank you for sharing this with us. It was very interesting. There are so many layers to it.
Oh, so many things we haven't even touched on. You know, it just, I mean, again, you know, from a regulator's perspective, we could start talking about chain of evidence and all of these different aspects that have to be followed up on. And I mean, if you're going to go to enforcement, you want to make sure that any evidence that you collect is usable, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are all a lot of different aspects about it. But yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, thank you very much for sharing this with us today. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of Storytime with Bret. If you like this content, please consider to subscribe, like, and share our videos. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.
Bye.